Hello, everyone. It is Monday, the 30th of December, 2024, and you are watching SkepTalk on the line. I am your host for today, Shannon Q, back from a long hiatus of traveling and coaching soccer and getting pneumonia and all of the parenting wonders with my wonderful co-host today, Paul from Paulogia. Paul, say hello to the people.
Hello to the people. You've now set me up that I'm expected to be wonderful, which is too high a bar for me,
true.
but we'll see what I can do.
At least could you aim for mediocre, and then nobody will be disappointed.
Yeah,
we'll all just be happy with
like
whatever
I can
happens.
shoot for that. Exactly.
We do have our lines open. You can call us by dialing on your touch-tone phone. People still have touch-tone phones, I'm assuming. And the number to call is, I'm out of practice. I have to look it up. It's 720-619-2288. And if you're calling from the web, you can click the link below in the description. And I'm sure the moderators are putting it in the chat as well. There are tons of lines open right now. I guess everybody's too intimidated by the combination of Paul and I. And nobody wants to call in and discuss their faith with us. We're not even drunk today.
They don't care about our souls, because if they cared about our souls, if they believed we had souls, and that they thought that we had eternal souls that were going to be burning forever, or separated from God forever, or just, gnashing our teeth forever, whatever it may be, if they really thought that, you'd think that they would be very, very, very concerned and motivated to change our mind. And yet,
one would think so. And yet here we are sitting by ourselves, being damned for eternity in our ignorance, with no one to help us. Alas, such is life.
Sit at home with your eggnog, your alcohol-free eggnog.
No, I'm on the water today because you and I we had too many celebratory drinks on Saturday. We recorded Hammy New Year on Saturday, as we do every year. Just one day of the year that I'm willing to allow Ken Ham to be displayed in front of my face, and there's a reason I drink through it.
Shannon and I have an annual tradition that we title Hammy New Year, where my first video of the year, it doesn't come out on the first typically, because sometimes we're not even recording on the first, sometimes it's later. But yeah, the first video of the year is always Shannon and I hanging out for a good portion of a day, drinking drinks and listening to young Earth creationists. So yeah, that happened.
It's mostly me yelling, it seems, for the most part.
Well, that tends to be how it ends.
You're getting progressively angrier.
At the start, it's a little more fun. But
is it?
Well, no, it's more lighthearted. It's a little more innocuous, and then it tends to, we ramp up to the serious harm. So
yeah, it's a slow build to me slamming tables and screaming. But hey, it'll be fun. It'll be fun. I'm sure people will enjoy watching it whenever it comes.
So tune in next weekish to see that. That'll be a fun thing.
I feel bad for you having to edit it, because we recorded for like 4.5 hours. Although I did have to take breaks periodically.
Well, I listened through the one time. There's some good stuff in there, and some other stuff in there,
and other things as well. Is there a particular type of call that you've mentioned calls about the soul? I know that you like to hear me talk about that, which is, I'm assuming, why you're baiting that. But is there a particular type of call that you'd like?
Well, I am always excited about anything related to the New Testament in particular. Is one of my favorites. We talked about Hammy New Year. The other weird, surreal thing around the channel that happened is that last week, even though I'd finished the video a bit before, last Friday, I put out a video on Is Jesus in the Old Testament?
Yeah.
And in that video, it was largely a video about prophecy and whether Jesus fulfills Old Testament prophecy. And in that video, I made several predictions about things that might happen in the upcoming year.
Oh, one of them was that Jimmy Carter was going to die, wasn't it?
And one of them was that Jimmy Carter was going to pass. And while that is very sad news to me that happened, it is also, I feel like it is a great it made my point largely that there are certain things that are rather predictable and are less about actually being a prophet and more about reading the tea leaves. And I've got a lot of pushback from theists this week. In fact, well, today, telling me that, well, that's just stupid because anyone could know that. And I'm like, oh, are you getting the point of my video? Are you getting the point that some of these prophecies weren't so much anyway? If that's one, if one of those is you, if you're a theist who thinks that my prediction that President Jimmy Carter was going to pass wasn't a real prophecy, call in and let me know why it wasn't a real prophecy. I'd love to hear about
what
that.
criteria makes it not a real prophecy? That would be interesting.
Exactly.
I see some people saying fudge in the chat. I have it open on the side. Not great at reading it, but I do see people saying fudge, and that makes me happy. That means there's some OGs around that remember Happy New Year from back in the day. I'm also curious how the mug thing is going too.
Oh, right. Well, there's also
yours and mine were like directly antagonistic to each other, and I was a little bit upset when I watched on.
Does everyone know what the mug thing even is?
Oh, maybe not. There was a competition. Each of us made a mug. You can still buy them. And we were all in direct competition with each other. We each designed our own. And by designed our own, I mean, I have no creativity whatsoever. I told Arden what I wanted and she designed it for me. Hers, I think, is my favorite, though. Hers is like so simple and perfect. I think hers is the one that I'm actually going to buy. It just says leave trans people the fuck alone. And it's like mint. Perfect. Exactly. It's exactly what I want in a mug. Mine is a mug that has a coffee table on it with a coffee on top of it that says, "See, Paul, they are useful." And yours is actually a bit more clever than mine. Yours is like a mug and it just says, "See, no coffee table required," or something, or "Coffee, no coffee table required."
No, none of those are.
Or something on it. What does it say? I can't remember.
Coffee,
I have bad memory.
All coffee,
no table. Yours was doing better than mine, and I thought for sure people would be on my team. I thought for sure. The chats had me convinced over the course.
So there's two ways. There's two ways you can let us know tonight.
I didn't need to sell the most. I just needed to sell more than you. It was wild.
You can you let us know if you're on Team Coffee Table or Team No Coffee Table. You can super chat the show tonight because this is one of those shows where we read the super chats. Often I'm hosting on Sundays and we don't.
Mm-hmm,
or you can go if you would like to check out the mugs. I'm sure there's a link somewhere in the description or something where you can go and see the mugs, and you can also vote for Team Coffee Table or Team No Coffee Table with a purchase of a lovely mug, which will become an actual mug in your hand when you purchase one eventually as it goes through the mail and things.
I have another piece of evidence that goes to my argument too. When you have toddlers in the house, maybe coffee doesn't go on the floor.
So there's not a chance in the world that if we had a coffee table that the toddler wouldn't have also reached onto the table.
We would have seen it though, because it wouldn't have been hidden behind the couch on the floor.
Yeah.
Where nobody knew it was until the toddler got a hold of it.
Everyone was fine.
Everyone was fine, but I'm just saying, like, that's like a tick on my side of things. We have calls now. I should probably be a better host.
The table.
I'm busy.
No,
I'm right. You're wrong. It's
grabs
fine.
things off the table.
Move on.
No. All right.
Yes, they do, but you can see it on the table because you can see the table. It's not that you know the coffee's going to be there and you know to pay attention. You're not like, oh, I wonder if at some random corner of this house there's a coffee on the floor that I should be concerned about. Just saying. Anyway, ready to take call? I hope you're sufficiently annoyed because we're going to start taking calls now. Are you ready, sir? Are you ready?
It's a call-in show. I guess we should take calls.
It's okay. I love you so much. Okay, let's take calls. We are going to talk to Paul from Canada. Uh-oh, there's two of you. Hello, Paul. You were on SkepTalk on the line. What would you like to talk about today? Paul, we can't currently hear you. You may be on mute.
Sometimes
can you hear
if the
Paul?
App goes to sleep, No, I
Yeah, I
cannot.
can hear you.
It's my understanding you need. Oh, do you?
Yeah. Oh, there's Paul.
I hear you
There's
now?
Paul. Oh, yeah, we can hear you.
Hi.
Hello. You're on the line. What
great.
would you like to
Well,
talk about today, Paul?
So I have a question, probably more for Shannon, because it's more of a sort of psychology type framework, and that is you're probably familiar with. I'm probably messing up the terminology, but sort of sociology perspective of faith, where it's belief, belonging, and behavior, like the sort of three things that make up, what causes you to believe in something. And so my question is, do you think you can believe in, or believe is not the right word, have faith or belong to a religious group, even if you don't believe? I would be thinking in terms of one of sort of progressive churches, but really it could be any organization that you feel comfortable with. If I recall correctly, Shannon, you were originally Anglican.
Mhm.
So, as you know, that's LGBT. They have same-sex marriages and other things of that nature, right? So I'd be comfortable with that. Whereas if it were sort of fundamentalist, anti-abortion, anti-LGBT, I would not feel comfortable. But there are churches that are, have a positive environment now, and all organizations have sort of bad history, but in terms of right now, there are some groups that, they're doing good work, and they do charitable work, with, shelters and kitchens and other things like that. We part of it. So part of me is I can suspend my disbelief in this case, and still sort of enjoy the community without actually believing in God, because fundamentally the things that I care about in terms of community and helping my fellow man, I can do through the church. I just want to know what your perspective was on that thought.
I mean, my perspective would be if people are doing good things or an organization is doing good things and they align with my moral system, I'd never be opposed to being in communion with them. But it seems to me like it would be arbitrary, like not to, right? Like if so long as somebody is consistent, or the group or organization is consistent with my moral integrity, and they're doing things that I think are good in the world, I would never stop anybody from or discourage anybody from being a part of that group if they feel like it benefits them. I think it's a different question whether or not it's true, and whether the epistemological framework and how you approach reality through that epistemological framework impacts anything else. I think that's a broader question. But I think, like, on the micro level, that I wouldn't have an issue with that. There's lots of different secular communities as well. I don't know if the Anglican Church actually does do gay marriages now. I know the United Church does. Like, the Protestant faith is split up, but pretty broadly. So I don't know if the Anglican Church does. If they do, that's great. That's awesome. They didn't when I attended
I
church.
could be mistaken on that, but I know it's affirming anyways. Let's put it that way. Certainly not.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my attitude towards it would be that if people are doing good things. Yeah, I guess my attitude towards it would be if people are doing good things and they're aligned with, my moral framework, I would never not be in communion with them. Like, if they needed help with something, I wouldn't just for the sake of, because they're a church, not, participate in something that's beneficial to the broader community and have the opportunity to meet those people and to help them simply because I wasn't a member of their congregation. I think it's a different question whether or not I'd be a member of the congregation if I don't believe. I think that's different. I don't think that my intellectual integrity would allow me to do that. Like, I feel as though I would feel like I was lying to myself and everybody around me by being there and kind of acting as though I, share the same faith beliefs as them when I don't. Like, I would be being dishonest to myself and being dishonest to them, and that's not in line with my moral framework. If they knew that I absolutely didn't believe and were still welcoming to me and aligned with, which they would have to do if they are aligned with the moral framework that I adhere to, they would be non-exclusionary. Then I would still help them if they were doing good stuff for the community. Does that answer your question?
Like oftentimes I find on these calls, which sort of by design, are kind of looking at the two extremes, whereas for me, I'm more interested in like that balancing line of like, where is that fine point of like whether I would, because in my case, I actually am an atheist, but I do feel kind of akin with a lot of the progressive churches, and there are, I kind of sort of miss the community, the sort of religious community. Yes, there are secular organizations, but it just doesn't resonate the same way. I don't know how to explain that. It's just more of a feeling, really.
No, I think I understand.
I can't quantify it.
Yeah, no, I think I understand.
Paul,
go ahead, Paul.
Paul, would you feel comfortable if you were missing community and you thought there was a bunch of cool people who had good ethics, who had formed themselves your local Flat Earth Society? Would you feel comfortable being a part of that group for the sake of the ethical behavior and the social ties?
I don't think I would in that case, but there's where it wouldn't be so much the matter of the community as I would see that as being disingenuous, because I would see those people as being just like ignorant about science and the way the world works. So it would, like, I would be like, these people are a bunch of morons. So it wouldn't be so much of like, oh, I couldn't accept the community. It's just like, I wouldn't. I would feel the same way as I would if I were in a church that was homophobic. That's not where I'm at.
But you understand that the key. I'm just curious about why you think there's a distinction here, because the key belief that they hold, if you wanted to become a member, the number one thing is absolutely going to be believing in God. That's the first statement of faith item for every membership in every church, right? Believe in God.
Yep.
And you don't hold to that, the first main thing. So in your mind, what is the difference between that Flat Earth Society and the church? Because you don't hold to either thing.
Well, I think what it is there's probably a proper terminology for it. I call it the placebo effect. What it is faith is believing in something without evidence. So there is no evidence that God exists. But similarly, like, you can't say that like it's impossible either. So if the placebo is believing in God and it makes me a better person, I feel part of something and I'm benefiting from it, whether it's true or not, it's kind of irrelevant.
What are you benefiting from, though, in that situation? Are you benefiting from not the belief, you're benefiting from, it sounds like, social or community ties?
Yeah.
Like, you feel as though you're missing out on social and community ties that you previously were able to satiate through church attendance, and now that avenue is no longer available to you. Like, here's a question, like, if you went back, would you pretend that you believe, or would you go back as someone who's open about their beliefs, or would you try to be stealth and go in and just not talk about it at all and hope it doesn't come up? Like, how would you go about doing that? I'm just curious what that looks like in your mind.
The way it looks in my mind, and like, I don't know how real this is. I mean, I left the church like 40 years ago, so like part of this might be just like I'm talking out my ass. But the way I envisioned it is like I would be there, I'd participate. If someone asked me, I would be honest with them, but I wouldn't sort of make a big deal out of the fact that some of these
Do you think that
hymns
would
just
change
don't
the
resonate with me.
dynamic, though?
Yeah.
Do you think that being honest in that situation with that group of people would change the dynamic of the interaction? Or do you think that it would be the same?
I don't know. And the reason why I say I don't know is uh, to this point, I've engaged online. And obviously, online is a different dynamic from actually going to a church and being face to face. But the reason why I
Right.
say online, I have done that is actually there's someone you're probably familiar with because he's in your neck of the woods, Reverend Ed Severs, who,
No idea.
you know, like I've joined some of his things and followed him online. And I'm like, I feel comfortable. And there's a bunch of atheists I can see from the comments. It's like, I think probably a third of his followers are atheists because everyone's like, okay, well, he's a good moral guy. He's got a good message. And I disagree with him on the fundamental, like I believe in God, but otherwise, I like what this guy has to say. And so there's where the fact that there is a group online that of atheists that are following an Anglican pastor, and we feel very welcome. Would it translate the same if I were at an physically at an Anglican church? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, like I
And
said,
I'd
I've
always
been
be
atheist
wondering
for
what the
20 years. So
motives are like for creating that environment where I feel like, are they attempting to hope to convert me if they're being welcoming? And if not, would they be shunning me? I mean, I don't know. I can't ascribe anybody any motives. And congregations at base are just a construction of a group of people who are human, who have human interactions with one another. I don't think we should ascribe any motives to anybody. But
Well, I can
that
tell you as an
aspect of the
evangelical
dynamic
that
would make me uncomfortable. Like, it would make me
as an
really uncomfortable.
evangelical, we absolutely targeted when if you got wind that someone in the church wasn't a believer but was coming to visit,
You'd love them.
you would love bomb those people like crazy. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
See, I'd
like
be
I mean,
worried
I
that
was
parts of that were
raised Catholic,
disingenuous for
and
that
like I would
reason.
never go back to a Catholic church because
Right.
you know there's a
Ditto.
number of things where I was just like, there's no way I would ever go back to be into a Catholic church. But like Anglican or United Church, yeah, I could totally see myself going there because you know, by and large, I guess I come from a more political background than religion. Like politics has always been more important to me than religion. And so, you know, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. So I kind of like, well, okay, I line
I get what
myself
you're
with these
saying,
people,
but to me, it's
so
like
I feel good
you
there.
can't get the toothpaste back in the tube situation, right? Like the toothpaste is out of the tube. Like I am not religious. If I go there, I'm going there under the pretense. Either I'm going there like just flat out being honest about my position, and then they may see me as antagonistic, or they may try to love bomb me, which changes that interaction dynamic, or
Yeah.
or they may shun me. All of the things, like I'm othered now, whether I like it or not. They don't see me as the same as that group. They may humor me in multiple ways, but
Mhm.
I'm no longer a member in the way that I previously was, and I can't change anything about that. So I just don't feel like you can, air quotes, go home again in a situation like that. But I understand the inclination. And I understand that, like, in
Yeah.
some situations when you're talking to somebody like me or like Paul, what you're going to hear is, no, you can't go back. And those people are bad and that place is bad. But that's not always true. Like, people are people. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Yeah.
don't think
I
I
mean,
would be comfortable.
yeah, I
I
guess
would
where
feel like too
I
many
find it because I
aspects have
listen to
changed.
conversations with theists, and they're trying to like sort of like like the flat earthers or
Mm,
creationists or other things like that, and I'm just like, that's just such a load of nonsense that when if anyone's like trying to convince me of the evidence of God, they've
yeah.
totally lost me. But if they're trying to, if I just find it ironic because that's what you get, right? For the most part, certainly online is people like, oh, and I'm probably the remaining callers on the show will be like, hey, here's all the evidence for God's existence, and you're going to shoot them down. Whereas if they actually went, hey, here's what being part of something could bring to you, and how believing in God and could actually make you a better person, or whatever, they'd actually have a rational argument that people like me would be like, okay.
I don't think believing in God makes you a better person.
Let's cover the conversation.
I don't think there's a rational argument for that one, bud.
4004 BC, like, boom, end of conversation, I'm out.
Yeah, no, I don't think that believing in God makes you a better person. Like, you lost me there. Like, you absolutely lost me there. I don't think that makes you a better person. And I think that if you get your moral framework from a text, from what I see as a work of fiction, then your moral framework is, a house built on sand, and it's not really a moral framework. Like, so those things I don't think you can get from a church. The only part that I might agree with you with, but I think you can get it elsewhere and in a more genuine way if you really truly don't believe, with people who believe similar sort of things. I mean, like, join a club, right? Like, go find a sport that you like, or like a tabletop gaming association, or like something else. Do community work if you want to do that, and you can get that elsewhere. Because I feel like aspects of the interaction would just definitionally have to be disingenuous or very, very charged with pretense. And then you wouldn't be getting what you ostensibly want out of that situation without having the back end concern that maybe some or all of these interactions aren't what they used to be, or aren't what I want them to be. That's my position on it.
Yeah.
Any social connection you make in that church is going to be predicated on. It's like, if you're an undercover cop, you can make friends as an undercover cop, but you're an undercover cop. You're like, those friendships aren't based on real things; they're based on an absolute base of, I've lost it. It's all based on a lie, right? And that's what you're not going to create genuine connection in that church. You're going to create facades of connection. And so I was very fascinated for you to say that you somehow wouldn't feel comfortable doing the very same thing in a flat earth society, even though they might be incredibly nice people who have exactly matching morals with you. For some reason, that's a bridge too far, but this one's not. I just invite you to think about a little bit more as to why you think that's a distinction with the difference.
Well,
we do need to let you go, though, too, Paul. Sorry.
Yeah. No. Sorry. That was homework for next time.
Homework. Yeah. Call us back, and we'll have a further discussion. We have a bunch of callers waiting now. Thank you, Paul. Good conversation. Lots to think about. Have a good rest of your day. Bye. Seems like a nice dude. I get that question, though. Like, I legitimately get that question, especially if you had that community and then feel like you can no longer be a part of it anymore. Like, that's rough. That is rough. We've all been through that, I think. Anybody who's deconverted, anybody who wasn't, born an atheist, that's an aspect of it that we all grapple with, and it's worth talking about it in a compassionate way, I think. In my opinion, I just wanted to take a moment to make some announcements, because that's what I'm the best at. And I would like to announce that the shows this week are kind of up in the air, because we are going to be doing some holiday special work, which is not yet finalized. So if you want to see those specials, there's lots of exciting things planned. I can't really tell you what they are right now because they're super secret and haven't been 100% finalized, but I would strongly recommend that you turn on the notification bell so that you can see when the shows come on and what the shows are, so that they will pop up. So please click the notification bell so that you can make sure you know when the shows are happening this week. You should already have it clicked anyway. I see you. I know you didn't click it. Do it now. I will mom voice you so hard. Don't tempt me. Don't tempt me. Go to your room. All right. Cool. You ready to take another? Paul just clicked the notification bell. I can tell.
I'm now scrambling to make sure I have my notifications turned on. I can tell you that.
Paul clicked all the notifications.
Yep.
All right, cool. Are you ready to take another call, good sir?
Let's do it.
We have a theist on the line. So we are going to take Angel. If my clicky thing will work. What's this thing called? A mouse. Hi, Angel. You are on the line. Thank you for calling. What would you like to talk about today?
Hello?
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 Angel, you're on the line.
Are you standing near a fan, Angel? Can you turn that off?
Oh. Okay, 1 second.
Okay. Are you still with us?
Fake caller.
Ah, all right. Well,
Yeah.
Angel's gone. Fair enough. All right. Well, there's still lines open for Theists then. Good news for anybody brave enough. I think, like, do you think Theists are legitimately, like, we don't get many Theists when it's you and I hosting together. I wonder, like, it seems like if I'm on with somebody else, they'll call, and if you're on with somebody else, they'll call. But if the two of us are on together, we don't get a lot of Theist callers. And like,
Yeah,
I'm starting to build a circumstantial case, the preponderance of evidence, or a cumulative case. I'm building a cumulative case right now. And
Yeah.
I know that Theists believe cumulative cases are good evidence. So it sounds to me like you guys are afraid. That's what it sounds to me. Buck, buck, buck. All right. Let's take another call then. We are going to talk to Megan in New Zealand. Oh, I wonder what time it is there. It's either early or late.
How are you?
Hello, Megan. Thank you for calling the line. What would you like to talk about?
It's the afternoon here for me.
Cool.
Firstly,
Most importantly, it's still 2024
to
there.
talk to you guys. I am really stoked to talk to you guys because honestly, I've been yelling at my screen for months now.
Oh, okay. Uh-oh.
Yeah, well, because
Hopefully not at
I'm
us.
an atheist, and I think it's a bit tough living in some places, and I'm a bit lucky living in a fairly liberal country. But I do have a problem. I met this person, and she was sick, and her mother, and I have become her sort of surrogate parent. And so she sort of stays here, etc. And we had problems sort of early on when she was 6 or 7 because she sort of was afraid I was going to hell and she would cry and all that sort of stuff. But in general, we haven't talked about anything. But on her 16th birthday, I gave her, I'm part Maori, but I'm blonde, blue-eyed, you'd never tell. And I gave her something from my culture, which is a greenstone heart. And this is when it all fell down. Her brother rang me up, and he's got a few mental health problems, but he has quite a few sort of religious ideations lately, and he's gone a bit sort of far. And he sort of rang me up and told me that I was the reason she was going nuts as a teen. She's not. She's just a normal teenager. I'm the reason why he can't control her anymore, and that I'm a bad influence. And if I don't believe in God, then I have no morals, and he doesn't want me around her anymore. And my problem is not so much with him, but his mother that sat back and listened and allowed him to call me the S word, C word, every other word you can think of, very racist. And she sat back and listened. And in the end, I said it was up to her mother and her father whether she was allowed this greenstone necklace. And her mother got on the phone and said, best not. I don't think we should do that because there might be some sort of curse on it.
Oh,
and it might curse our house.
That's so racist. God, that's racist.
Yeah. And
sorry.
So I said, thank you very much. And I hung up. I think they've allowed me to be in her life so long because I've helped them. You know, I've got a bit of money, I've got a bit of time, I don't have any children. So I've been able to do a lot for them. And also because I don't look Maori at all, I'm acceptable. But it's all gone down the drain. But a few days ago, I haven't spoken to his mother in months because I want nothing to do with her. But she sent a message, a voice message, and she was very shaky. And she was saying, please, can we talk? Can we sit down? Can I can I go with you somewhere and have a coffee? And I am at an impasse because the daughter is pretty much old enough to sort of make her own decisions, but I am going to be around her a lot. Birthdays, Christmas, New Year's, 21st, marriage, that sort of thing. So I'm a bit stuck. Her father, by the way, is a lovely guy. They're split up. So I'm sort of shaking it. I'm a bit nervous.
It's okay. You're all right.
Yeah, so I don't know what to do. Do I accept it back in? I mean, do I say no? You're not safe for me. I don't feel safe. I don't know what to do.
Has she apologized or indicated a change in her position?
Well, it's funny because prom, I brought her daughter a prom dress and she got ready with me. And her mother came around to see her before she went to the prom. And she tried to talk to me whilst her daughter could hear me. So I sort of cut it down quite a bit. But I got the gist of it that she was trying to explain why. And she said that she has friends that say that there's the curses on these greenstone things. And that they shouldn't be allowed in the house. Basically, it's a heart.
That's not an apology.
I'm not that connected to. I mean, I love my culture, and but it's a few generations back. I'm probably about 15%. It's just it's. But the response to it, it confused me. I'd never heard that before. All it meant was love. So she's standing on the fact that the actual. It could curse her house. But then she's trying to apologize to me at the same time. And I don't think
I'm sorry I offended you with these things I perceive as facts. Yes, I'm sorry you were upset 100%. That I perceive this as a fact. That's not, I'm sorry I understand this is incorrect and offensive. When there's a very distinct difference between the two, I wouldn't consider that an apology or a change in position.
No, but is she going to? That's my point. But I can't say, no, because she says, I've got Maori friends that say this. And I mean, I could never imagine any Maori friends saying that. But I grew up so atheist, it's not funny. I mean, my whole life around me has always been atheist. So it was strange to let theists in the first place. I had to be very careful. I was always careful of what I said to her daughter. I drove her to Sunday school. Her daughter has a Bible in my spare room. I just don't know what to do.
What you're going to do ultimately is going to be up to you. I could tell you that they're boundary crashers. It sounds like her mother is for sure. I'm not sure about her. That's a potentially difficult situation for her. I don't know how young she is. She's going to prom. She's probably still a teenager, I would assume. Pardon me. So I'm not sure how that impacts your relationship with her, but it would seem like you'd need to set some pretty strong boundaries with her mother, or at least I would want to, before I was willing to have her around me, which maybe she'd be willing to allow you to continue the relationship with the daughter. I'm not sure what that looks like, but there would be some boundaries being set.
It's not up to her. Her dad and I get on very well, and she's 16, so she really can. And her mother, to her credit, has never, I mean, probably because it favors her because, I do a lot for her daughter. But what is making me sad is that it's making her daughter sad, because her daughter has taken care of her mother pretty much her whole life. Her mother has a few mental issues as well. So she's grown up too quickly with two members of her family that are both very stuck in a religious cycle and also have a few mental health problems. So she's sort of grown up supporting them, but also being angry at them. And I don't want to make her life any more difficult. And I know that I've got to care about myself, but I also love that girl to death, and I want her to be happy, and she wants me to be able to be around her mother.
Maybe modeling for her what boundaries look like would be a good way to help make her happy and more well-rounded. Maybe say, and explaining to her, hey, like your mother spoke to me this way. That impacts me in this way. These are the boundaries that I am setting with her. Like if she is around me, we don't discuss my culture. We don't discuss religion. We don't have those conversations at all. We have like a list of topics that we are able to have conversations about, and we stick to that list. And if she deviates from that list, then I will see that as her pushing past the boundary that I have set, and I will potentially distance myself from her because she needs to respect my boundaries.
I mean, she understands it. She knows what happened, and she doesn't blame me. But I know she wants everybody to get on. But I mean, I suppose growing up, having to make sure everybody got on, she still sort of believes that. But what it was for me was this complete crash, because up until 16, I never knew that they thought any of this of me. And then it just all came out in this, you know, you're a bad influence. My teenager's starting to act up, and that's your fault because we model Christian values and you don't, and you allow her to do things that, you know, you shouldn't allow her to do. And, you know, it really crashed me because I thought this was a part of my family, and all of a sudden what they thought of me just came out. And it's sad to me because I mean I've got a neighbour also that's this Christian, and I laugh at it, but you know he calls me the S word, but with a smile on his face, saying it's only because I had, you know, sex out of marriage. You know, it's a nice smile on his face when he does it, and I just sort of feel like if you're Christian, model that bloody behaviour, you know.
Yeah, sounds like you allow people to get away with a lot when it comes to you.
Oh, so, no, I told him off. I told, like, the next door neighbour off. It's only this situation. I mean, she's like my child because I don't have any children. Everybody else, they'll get a telling off from me, believe me. Everybody knows how I feel about religion. Everybody.
Yeah, no, I would definitely work with boundary setting. We are going to have to let you go in a minute. I just want to make sure that if Paul has anything to say, that
that's fine. But you've been very helpful. I think that you've just sort of underpinned the things that I knew sort of I had to do. But you know, when she rang me up, I was like, oh, do I go? Do I go and sit and have coffee with her? Do I talk to her? That's all I was thinking. So
you do go in with a plan. Go in with a plan about what you're gonna say in regards to boundary setting with her. Paul, did you have anything to say or add?
Well, the only thing I would add would general thank you for being a good influence and for being a mentor and taking someone under your wing. And keep in mind that you may well be the only non-believing person that they the only non-believing person that they get to have regular interaction with. And so, you know, just thank you for that. But also keep in mind that, at this point, in a couple of years, they'll be 18 and they will be able to have more opportunities to choose their own family, as it were. And so just, if you can, stick to the high ground on all this stuff. I know it's got to be frustrating to be slurred on so many fronts, and I'm sorry about that. But keep as Shannon said, just keep modeling, being a good model for them. I think that's the best you can do.
Yeah. All I wanted to say though, Paul, and don't take this in a weird way, the intensity with which you stare into the souls of Theists on that show just is beautiful. That's intense stare. I love it.
All right. Well, I'm glad someone does. So it's been called other things. I appreciate.
Oh no, I know. I love it. It's obvious that you really pay attention to what people are saying, and I really appreciate that. And I love you guys both. I think that you are bloody awesome, and you're welcome in New Zealand anytime.
Oh,
well, as long as Ray Comfort's not there, I'm willing to come.
We'll come. Exactly.
Come in the summer, right? Come in the summer, but apart from that, you'll love it. Go tramping. Okay.
Sounds good.
Thanks so much.
Thanks. Have a good rest of the day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Oh, she seems lovely. I hope that works out. Sounds like she's a good influence in that person's life. All right. Are you ready to take another call? We have another theist
I'm ready
on the
to
line.
stare in
Let's hope
someone
this
else's
one's
soul.
for real. Yeah, stare at their soul. All right, we are going to talk to Patrick. You are on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hey, so I was wanting to talk about the double slit experiment. I'm sure you guys are probably familiar with what that is.
In general,
Yeah, vaguely.
it's the experiment. So let's make sure we're on the same page. You're talking about the
About particles
experiments
being
where they have
observed.
and it's one of the ones that so there's the observation bias ones, but I'm assuming you mean the ones that generally prove that light is both a particle and a wave. Is that what you're referring to, Patrick?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. What about him?
All right, and that's
So,
evidence for God?
well, I don't know if it's evidence for God, but what I'm specifically talking about is that it's evidence that our observation can change reality, which, because what specifically I was wanting to talk about the experiment is there was a modified version where you would place detectors and how the particles would act would actually be different based on whether the detectors were turned on or not. So this has been
So
seen as evidence that observation can affect reality.
right. That was what I apologize. That is actually what Shannon was asking about initially. The observer effect. There's variations of the slit. So you're talking about specifically the observer effect ones. Okay, carry on. I think we know what you're talking about. How does that point us to God?
Yeah, well, it basically, to me, it just shows that there has to be more to our understanding than just the material world, because how would that make sense that an observer, without physically interacting with something, could change the outcome? That seems to violate the laws of physics.
How so?
Well, like if someone just decides to think about something, typically, unless they perform an action, there wouldn't really be any effect. Like if I just think about a certain tree disappearing, it's probably not just going to randomly disappear.
Do you think that that's analogous to the slit experiment?
Well, from my understanding, that seems to be what the idea is.
Do you know if the observer experiments, does it work when it's a non-conscious observer?
Well, the thing is, it's more based on the detectors. So I guess that wouldn't be conscious. It could be, analogous to like a camera or something. But the interesting thing is that hope I can get this right. I think that when you turn off the observers or the detectors, the particles will still behave the same way if you sort of turn it off. I don't exactly remember, but I probably should have gone over this before talking about it. But I think
Paul's right,
there
though, by the
was
way.
a certain
It doesn't need to,
yeah.
there's no, I was
I
looking it
think
up as we were just talking, and the observer doesn't need to be conscious. There's no evidence of that, which means that there's no conscious component discerning reality. But we just don't understand what it is about the observation entering into the experiment that causes the particles in the wave to act differently, the photons to act differently. Because the experiment itself happens on like a pretty micro scale, right? Like you're not actually watching it happen in person, like present with it. You're watching it through machinery generally. So there's some component to it. Nobody knows what it is. But it doesn't have anything to do with consciousness because you can use other machines, other equipment to act as the observer, and the effect is the same.
So, Patrick, is it that you
True.
think that this
So-
is is it because this is counterintuitive and you don't fully understand it that you think ... therefore something beyond material world? Or is it something else?
Yeah, well, that's sort of what I think. There's actually a lot of this type of stuff with quantum mechanics. A lot of the things with it don't really make any logical sense. So, do you guys think that
Well,
could be
hold on, they don't
possible
make
evidence that
Patrick, hold on. They don't make logical sense to you, and they're counterintuitive to your personal experience, or they cannot be made sense of. Is it A or B?
Well, I guess more A, but I guess what's considered logical could be subjective. But I think for most people, understanding of the world is based on classical physics, which doesn't really hold for the quantum world.
Sure. And you know that before we had a good germ theory that it was very not intuitive that surgeons needed to wash their hands. That was no surgeons wash their hands before surgery. That was counterintuitive that they should have to do that. Are you familiar enough with scientific history to acknowledge that our human intuition has been overturned many times, but now that we know it, it seems intuitive?
Yeah, that is true. So could that same logic hold to sort of what some skeptics would sort of consider anything spiritual to be pseudoscience? Is it true that maybe some of this phenomena we just don't understand and it could actually be true?
Those are two separate questions.
Sure.
So science is a methodology, right? So appealing to spirituality to explain something is pseudoscience. It's not science. Like you need to operate within the realm of methodological naturalism in order for science to science. That's just a fact of the matter. That's just a component of what the concept of science is. Does that mean separate thought? Does that mean that people's spiritual experiences are de facto false? No, it doesn't. It means that if they are true, they can't be quantified, measured, or described by or explained using the scientific method. So those are two separate thoughts.
Okay, well, yeah, I would actually agree with that. I guess maybe pseudoscience is not a way to dismiss it, but I guess there are some atheists or skeptics who think that anything spiritual can't be true because it's not science. But could it be that,
Not
even
because
though
it's not
science
science.
is obviously
Because
a
it's
great...
not real. Because we don't believe it's real. We
Yeah,
don't believe there's any
well,
evidence for it.
do you think there... Yeah, well, I guess I would disagree with that, and maybe that's sort of a conversation
Lots of people do.
we could have
Way more
another
theists than there
time.
are us.
Yeah. So, I don't know if you would want to discuss that, or maybe
Sure.
if you would want me to call back to talk more
We
about
can go
that
through
at
that a
some
little
point.
bit. We can go through that. So you think that
Okay.
spiritual experiences are true? All of them? Unilaterally?
Well,
Or do you have some sort of
not all
criteria
of
that you're
them.
utilizing to discern which ones are?
Well, it's not so much that when it comes to specific ones, I could know, because most of them don't really have any real evidence to support them. It's just based on people's stories. But I
Right.
think when you look at the sheer amount of these stories, and that a lot of the people are pretty reliable sources who don't even really want to believe in this stuff, but they have these sort of encounters. I think it just seems to. I wouldn't feel right to just dismiss all of them and say none of them could be true.
I feel fine about dismissing all of them and saying that I don't think that any of them are true, for the same reason that I would dismiss any one of them individually, because I think it's more likely that a person can be genuinely mistaken in the belief about an experience or a memory that they had. I think that there's lots of science that surrounds memory that shows us that memory is incredibly malleable and fallible all at once in some combination, and that people imbue their memories and their experiences through time with their perception, their internal scaffolding through which they perceive the world, their epistemology surrounding the world, and they utilize that by default to create explanations for experiences they don't otherwise have an initial, like, real overt explanation for. And it's significantly more probable that that explains the people who are being honest than that each and every single one of those people who's being honest actually had a spiritual experience, especially considering that most of those spiritual experiences are attributed to a multitude of things that contradict each other, different gods, different beliefs, different types of magic belief, different types of spiritual structures, multiple modalities. For the same reason that if any one person came up to you and said it, you wouldn't necessarily believe them, or would be unlikely to believe them because they don't fit the criteria that you would think something needs to fit for it to be believed. I dismiss all of them. I don't believe them. I think they're wrong.
Well, I mean, I guess that's a fair way of thinking about it. But you mentioned that a lot of them are contradictory. I think a possible explanation for that is that if these experiences are real, depending on people's views, they could be shown different things that would be more meaningful for them.
So
Like, for
I think you're maybe
example,
misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm saying that if somebody who is a Hindu has a spiritual experience of some sort that they attribute to Krishna, and then if somebody who is a Muslim has, in some other modality even, a spiritual experience that they attribute to Allah, definitionally they're contradictory because those two belief systems are not congruent with one another. They're inconsistent with one another. They don't mesh. They're attributing their experience to the belief system that they're familiar with, the one that they adhere to, which is what everybody does. People very rarely, if ever, have a spiritual experience that they attribute to a religion they're unfamiliar with. That would be far more interesting. But that doesn't tend to happen. People affiliate their spiritual, air quote, spiritual experiences with the religion that they already believe, which means that those spiritual experiences are rife to be affiliated with that from a mental perspective. Because if you're searching for an answer to the unanswerable, you have been taught that the answer to that is your religion. And if you have an experience that is incomprehensible to you in the moment, what your brain is wired to do through conditioning, through years and years and years and years and years of societal conditioning and structural conditioning in an organization, is to attribute that answer to the belief system that that organization has taught you to attribute things that are unexplainable to. So that is what happens. That is mundane. That is super mundane, very predictable, incredibly plausible, and makes more sense than all of these people are having their own unique experiences attributed to their own unique religious sects, and that all of them are right, or only some of them are, and the rest of them are either lying and mistaken.
Well, do you think the same logic might hold for an atheist where anything they experience, they think has to be within the material realm, where if something sort of interesting happened to them, they might just assume that the answer must be material, that it's impossible that anything from outside the material could have caused that because of the way they view the world.
Are you suggesting that I'm biased by my adherence to the material reality surrounding me?
Well,
And that if
not
I
you
have an experience
personally,
and I
but
think to myself first, okay, well, there's probably some sort of explanation, neurologically that I can look to for this. There's some sort of like psychological or external, like dorsal explanation for this experience that I'm having. That what I'm doing is making a mistake in that situation, and I should instead what go. This is a spiritual experience by default. Like,
well,
what's my alternative in
I'm
that
not.
scenario?
I'm just saying I think it's good to keep an open mind that there's a possible spiritual explanation. Not that you have to believe that, but some people
I'm open
might
to it,
completely shut that out.
but I'm not going to default to it.
What was
I'm not
that?
shutting it out entirely by simply not making the upfront assumption that that is the case. I tend to make the upfront assumption if I have like a weird sensory experience, which I do. Like I have multiple sclerosis, so I have lots of weird visual things that happen to me. I attribute them to my multiple sclerosis because I know multiple sclerosis is a thing that I have. I sometimes like see weird shape forms in my visual field because my optic nerves aren't attached appropriately or have lesions on them, and thus I see sometimes shadows or like weird sort of like moving bodies that are kind of like fuzzy that go across my eyes, but they like I can visually see them going across the room. Now I know that that's a symptom of multiple sclerosis, and I know that I have multiple sclerosis and I've been diagnosed with it, but I have multiple visual hallucinations as a result of it because my brain is trying to put together what's going on with the disconnect in my visual tract. Now, you're suggesting that me attributing those to my multiple sclerosis because I found a natural explanation for them is somehow me not being open to that being a spiritual experience. I think that I benefit more
Well,
as a human, as a person, from knowing that that is some aspect of my neurological system that has a defect. That way, I know if it increases, I should be concerned. That way, I know if it changes in its variables, that is something that I should take note of, so that I can make sure that I'm doing the best to monitor my health. Now, if I had just simply attributed those, and they were one of my first symptoms, to a spiritual experience and said, "Oh, I'm seeing specters. This I should probably attribute this to some form of spirituality. I don't want to be biased now. I don't want to be biased now. I should be open to this being a spiritual experience. It would be ignorant of me and bias for me to assume that this is somehow grounded in material reality. I would not have necessarily got my diagnosis, potentially a treatment, and been able to monitor these things if I had made that choice. So, no, I would not advocate for that choice ever for anybody.
yeah, well, of course, in that situation,
How do you know
of
any other
course,
situation is not that
multiple.
situation? How do you, sir, know that
Well,
any other situation in which somebody is having experiences in sensory modalities, it is not a neurological event that should be attended to? How do you know that they should, and how do you dare say that they would be biased if they did want to ground it in material reality as a basis of fact, first and foremost, at the very least, for process of elimination?
well, I'm not so much talking about hallucinations or something. I'm kind of talking about sort of coincidences that the idea of synchronicities. Which I had heard you were into psychology, so I don't know if you may know about that. I'm kind of talking about those not necessarily anything medical, but I think that those should be thought of as possibly spiritual.
So you think that you think coincidences should be seen as spiritual? In what regard? And how would
I
one
would
augment their life
I would
as a
say,
result of that?
well, not that you have to change your life over it, but just, consider that may be a possible source depending on how extreme or
What about
meaningful the
anything that I've
coincidence
ever
may
said has
be.
negated that as a possible source?
Well, I think there are some people who would kind of ridicule someone for believing that is the most likely source.
Most likely source and possible source are two exceptionally different perceptions on this view, sir. Most likely source
Yeah,
is miles away from possible source. That is taking the goalpost from where it is on the field and moving it to a different town. I'm saying the source is possible. I am not saying that it is the most likely. I will not say that it is the most likely. I think coincidences happen, and most things that we perceive as coincidences are just aspects of memory nodes being activated. And if they're activated in conjunction with one another, then we can have a multiplicity of experiences in our mind that give us sensations of deja vu, for example, which is a real sensation that we have, but it is a neurological experience. These are things that we can know about. And these are things that have most likely neurological or psychological explanation. So if we change our view, if we look instead to the sky and say, we shall at first assume the most likely explanation is the explanation of our specific subset and sect of spiritual belief. Thus, I will look to that first. We will not progress. We will learn nothing and we will jeopardize our health. So I will not ever say that it is the most likely source. Will I eliminate it entirely as a potential source? No, of course not. That would be intellectually dishonest. But I would never advocate for anybody by default looking at it as the most likely. I think that is foolhardy and contra to what society should do if they want to progress and learn.
Patrick, did you just say that your primary criteria for telling the difference between something supernatural and a coincidence is how meaningful it is to you? Did you express that is your criteria?
yeah, I would probably say that.
So, based on what Shannon just said, would you not recognize that how meaningful it is actually possibly the worst criteria? Because if something is very meaningful to you, you are far more prone to these memory problems and also confirmation bias, right? Like, you're familiar with confirmation bias, where things that
Yeah.
you're paying attention to more, it's more likely to come to mind. So, um, would you not at least put on the table that perhaps how meaningful something is to you is a negative?
Yeah, I suppose that could be in some instances.
Like, I would be more impressed by a coincidence if something was, that has absolutely no meaning to me in some ways, right? Because that means I'm less likely to be wanting it or inventing it, right?
Yeah. Well, I suppose if
Interesting
it
point.
had no meaning to you, you probably wouldn't really notice it.
Ding, 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 ding. On the nose. Ding, ding, ding. Yo, yes, correct. It'd be less likely to register with you and then be attributed.
As well
Yes.
as also the false negatives, right? The things that are, we ignore the things that are,
Non-affirming.
you ignore
Yeah.
all the time your horoscope is wrong and pay attention to that one time in 365 where it really seemed to speak to you, right? Or not you necessarily, but people who would get excited about such things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't really believe in horoscope necessarily, but
I didn't think
I
you
see
did,
what
but I
you're
was just
saying.
in. Yeah,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Well, sort of, kind of where I'm getting a lot of this information is I recently read a book called Signs. I don't know if you guys have heard of it by Laura Lynn Jackson. It just has a lot of interesting stories that I guess I can't confirm the validity of it, but if you read them and if they are true, it would seem to suggest really unbelievable coincidences.
I'm at a loss. So you're just saying that you read a book that's filled with coincidences?
Therefore, God.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to draw the connection here. So you read a
Yeah. I
book.
mean, I believe. Yeah,
So
I
do you
believe a
think that
lot
the
of the
author of
stories
that book
are.
was maybe shaping the lens by which you would view those coincidences to some degree?
Well, it's possible. That's why I say I don't treat the book like the Bible or something. Because even though I would consider myself a theist, I don't believe in any book as any sort of ultimate source of truth. I try to be
Hmm.
critical of everything, but I think that just assuming if the stories are true, which we don't really have any evidence either way, I guess, but it seems to be a pretty reputable author. That it, I think there's a lot we could learn from it.
So
From
you agree,
coincidences?
though, that there are coincidences. You agree that there are coincidences, right? That some things are just genuinely a coincidence.
Yeah, of course that happens sometimes.
Okay. And now you're hypothesizing that there is a level of coincidence that is beyond, that can no longer be explained the way other coincidences can be explained. Is that what you're telling us?
Yeah.
I'm saying that at a certain level, there's always a possibility, but the chance that it's simply a coincidence becomes way less likely in certain situations.
Tell me what the threshold is where it crosses into that it's got to be supernatural, or that I should start thinking that it's more likely to be supernatural than natural.
Yeah.
Can you describe that to us?
Well, maybe sort of to give you an example, if I can think of something off the top of my head, if you're sort of writing a book and you think of a character and, make up a name, an appearance, a job, their whole life, and that's, very sort of specific, and then the next week you meet someone that you didn't know of that completely fits that description, wouldn't you sort of question is there something going on here?
No.
I am an author. No. No.
Well, I mean,
I
I guess
wouldn't.
that's fair. I probably would, but maybe that's just me.
I mean, one of my characters was a dinosaur hunter. So if I met someone who is an active dinosaur hunter, I would
Don't
think
tempt
that'd be
fate.
pretty cool. But no, in my other, I wrote a character named Jake who was a treasure hunter who had cancer and was bald, and like those, if I met somebody named Jake who hunted treasure and and was bald and had cancer, these are just things that exist, right? There's a certain, probably someone could quantify how many of those people are in the world right now.
And there'd also be a lot of nuanced aspects about that person that weren't included in your initial conception as well.
Right,
You would be
exactly,
focusing
right?
on the fact that there's these one subset of
Superficial.
attributes is overlapping.
Mm.
Right. Yeah. Like that this person, like all of us have myriad attributes and myriad life experiences, but you would be focusing on that subset of attributes that overlap in order to have a positive hit for that coincidence to resonate. And I mean, for example, when I was younger, I had a very close friend whose name was also Shannon, and we lived in the same town, and both of our parents ended up being divorced. Both of us had blonde hair when we were younger, and we were frequently in the same classes. And unbeknownst to us, even though we didn't really talk, we ended up going to the same university at one point. That's a lot of coincidences that me and my friend Shannon have in common. Same name, even. Now, what meaning would I derive from that?
Yeah.
That's true. That's all true.
Well, those are
Shannon exists. We were both blonde. We were in a lot of the same classes. We, unbeknownst to us, went to similar university. And I actually ended up dating her boyfriend's best friend, but we met separately, even though we ended up going to the university. And then we ended up working at the same place too. Oh my God, we did. We ended up working at the same place. We both worked for Down East. So that's a lot of overlap in our lives. What do I get from that?
yeah.
Thus, therefore,
Well, my interpretation is it's possible maybe you guys have some sort of spiritual connection.
why? What's more likely? That the name Shannon for people who were born in the early 1980s was fairly common, that I lived in a town with enough people that somebody else was going to be named Shannon, that as a result of living in the same town, we went to the same school. Because there's very few universities in Nova Scotia, we ended up going to the same university because she dated a guy that she was with since high school, and I dated a guy shortly out of high school, that they would probably be friends because we went to the same junior high and high school. Like, those all seem, and then I ended up working at that company which is actually where I met my ex-husband. And actually, I think that was because of her, because she suggested that I get the job, because we had reconnected at that point when we were in university and dating. But like, there's no spiritual connection between the two of us.
What would that even mean?
It's just a series of mundane things that that is true.
Patrick, let's take your interpretation for a second. Let's take your interpretation for a second. What does spiritual connection mean in this circumstance? What should we draw from it, this spiritual connection? And what explanatory power does it have?
I would say that the sort of meaning behind it is that I think we sometimes meet people for a reason, that there's sort of a deeper, like a sort of a spiritual meaning behind our encounters in life.
What if my mom had named me Catherine instead, because she was going to? What if she'd gone through with that? Would that have unraveled it? What if I hadn't ended up dating her boyfriend's best friend? What if we didn't go to the same university for a brief period of time? What then? Which one of those dominoes could I pick out for it to not be a spiritual connection? And I could do that with anybody else I know, by the way. You can find overlap.
Yeah, well,
I still don't know what this spiritual connection means. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this spiritual connection thing. Like, you're supposed to meet? What does that even mean?
Well, what the meaning would be is, I guess, you could sort of like learn lessons from, because, and as I said, ultimately I see myself as a free thinker. I don't completely believe anything, but the view I kind of lean towards now is this sort of Eastern spiritual view of things like karma. So I think that we sort of meet people to kind of carry that out.
Okay, but
so everything you see, you're going to view through that frame. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah,
how can we demonstrate? How can we demonstrate any of that? How can you demonstrate that there's a meaning? Like Shannon and I met. Was there a meaning in that? We have a meaningful relationship, but how am I supposed to demonstrate or make any kind of prediction or like what? How can I, other than me feeling a certain way about a thing, what does it get me?
Well, there isn't really no way to demonstrate or predict it because it's not really a scientific thing. But if it's possible that there's other ways to view the world, there's different ways of things to classify things as evidence and to think of things from a sort of a non-scientific view. So it doesn't really work if you see it from...
What has it added to my life if I'm wandering around arbitrarily saying this connection was meaningful and this one was not?
Well, in theoretically, every connection could be meaningful.
Okay,
There's just
so let me
what
if I just operate under the assumption that every connection I have is meaningful? Because I actually do operate under that assumption. But I don't think it's a supernatural meaning. I just think that it's, this mean. So why would I need a supernatural realm for me to personally just appreciate any connection I make with an animal or plant or person? Like, what's the additive here?
Well, you don't need it. You can still just appreciate it, whether, even if you just believe it, there's no sort of real meaning behind it, you can still sort of appreciate it. Just me personally, I think there probably is a meaning behind it.
But it makes no difference at all to the universe whether I think it's meaningful or not?
No, I mean, obviously it doesn't really matter, really.
Okay, so we've spent the last however long, half hour-ish, talking about something that ultimately you want us to be open to, but will ultimately have no difference to anyone's life, whether we accept it or not. Is that where we're at now?
Well, true, but the same thing could be said of lots of different beliefs. I mean, it's a fun thing to talk about, but ultimately, I think only in extreme situations will your beliefs really ultimately affect your life too much.
Okay.
So okay.
Go ahead, Shannon. Please.
Well, it seems like we're pushing into further and further corners. You know what I mean? Like moments ago, there was a book full of coincidences that was perceived as some sort of evidence. And now that we've kind of like deconstructed the meaning surrounding these coincidences and acknowledged that you can find meaning in literally anything, and coincidences can be found literally anywhere, none of that actually matters anymore. And I just derive meaning from this belief that I have, and we don't need those coincidences to actually mean anything, because all interactions are valuable and meaningful through the lens of this faith. So really, it's just like, to me, it just seems like you're pushed into the corner where you're just saying, I like it.
Well, I mean, I suppose I guess if you want to see it that way.
I mean, I could be wrong. That's how it's being perceived to me, because it seems like, I mean, you kind of admitted that every interaction could have meaning after your dialogue with Paul, and that coincidences can just be coincidences, and that there's no point through the spectrum of coincidence that you can specifically point at and say that this is what caps the threshold. So that means that they can't be classified as evidence, really, because you're just saying the fact that they exist is evidence, but also simultaneously admitting that the fact that they exist is, arbitrary and mundane and to be expected just from, general reality. So I'm lost at why, aside from, warm blanket feeling, which is fine if that's the case.
Well,
I'm not going to yuck your yum.
I mean, I guess it depends. Yeah. Well, it's not so much that I see them as, evidence in the scientific sense of the term, but it's just
they're not evidence in any sense of the term based on the conversation that we just had, though, because they're so mundane as to be innocuous, right? That's just like saying air is evidence. It's something that, would be anticipated and is all around us all the time, that, happens as a component of reality. So it can't be evidence unless you can quantify some way in which it exceeds a threshold where it would not be expected or anticipated in any mundane scenario. And you've not been able to quantify that. And in some instances even existed that it potentially isn't quantifiable because it wouldn't be necessary anyway, because meaning can be derived from every interaction. So these coincidences are in fact arbitrary even within your own belief system. Therefore, it's not about scientific evidence. It's about, what does the word evidence even mean in that instance, aside from I look at this and consider it thus, therefore I will call it evidence. It's not helpful to me when there's no way to quantify it in a meaningful way that I could discern it from just any other fact of reality that I would anticipate seeing just walking around day to day.
Well, I guess we're just not really on the same page as to what meaning we sort of derive from these coincidences, which I guess
okay.
I don't know if there is much else we can say. I know it's been a while. I don't want to like cop out or anything. We can keep talking if you want, but I know you
you're
might
okay.
want to get on to some
We have
other
one more call
calls.
to take before we are done. But I appreciated talking to you. You should give a call back sometime. Maybe we can get to the point that I can figure out what your definition of evidence is then, like where we deviate on what evidence means. Like you keep defaulting back to science when I'm not even appealing to science. I'm just saying that in order for something to be considered a piece of evidence, it has to have some sort of unique quality that like points towards something specifically in a way that nothing else that isn't evidence does, right? And in this instance, you've not given me an example of something that points towards one specific answer in a way that nothing else does. You've simply said that this mundane thing that I perceive in the world, I attribute to. Therefore, I will describe all of these mundane instances as evidence. You see them differently. I see them as evidence for this. You see them as evidence for nothing. But all of them unilaterally is what I'm talking about, because there is no bar. You're just saying coincidences in general. But you would agree that there are coincidences that are arbitrary, I would think. So I want to get to your threshold, but perhaps we won't do that today. But maybe think on that one and give me a call back, because I think that's where the interesting component is of this conversation, at least to me.
Yeah, well, the thing is, I don't have an exact threshold. It's more just, maybe this certain one I would say probably just a coincidence, and another one I would say probably not a coincidence.
That means you are using something to discern, though. Like you're not holding a divining rod over them and seeing where the divining rod points. You're doing some sort of cognitive work. You're putting it in some sort of effort. You're doing some sort of weight and balance in your mind that's saying, because this does not have X attributes and this does have X attributes, therefore this one I will put in the column of coincidence of value, and this one I will put in the column of coincidence of no value. And you created in your mind somewhere, perhaps you're not even aware of what that arbitrary line is in your mind, but there is somewhere a line where you will make a determination. That determination is based on something. Is the interesting question is, what is the determination based on? Is the determination based on this adheres to support of this idea that I want to be supported? Is it, this one seems like it has more attributes than others do. This one fits this set of criteria and this one doesn't. Like, I don't know what it would be. Like, that's a question you need to ask yourself. But it's not clear to me that it's anything right now, because it's unable to be articulated, and that makes it difficult to continue the conversation in a way where I can understand like what evidence means to you. So maybe think about that and call back the next time I host, 6 months from now or whenever I'm done with all the stuff that I do outside of here, or call Paul back. He hosts significantly more than I do, and we'll have a chat about it, because I think that would be super cool. I think that would be interesting. I'd like to know where you fall on that.
Okay,
Deal?
well, I guess I'll try to do that. Yeah.
Cool.
I don't know if I'll call you personally, but I'll call into the show sometime and talk
Okay.
about that.
I wouldn't want to talk to me either if I was you, Patrick. I don't blame you. All right. Have a good day, Patrick. Thank you. Talk to you later. Bye.
You too.
That was, I don't know what that was. I don't know what that was.
It
Thoughts
was a
before we take
it
our
was a
last call?
journey.
It was a journey. All the way
It
from
was a journey.
the observer bias and the quantum slit experiment to coincidences.
Yep. Well, it seems like the criteria are
tangled
things
webs we
that
weave.
if he thinks it's neat, maybe it's supernatural.
I mean, I want to give him maybe more credit than that. Like maybe there's something that he's looking at and saying, okay, this one he's mentally sorting them by some
I think it's
some method.
by neatness.
Something is being utilized. There's cognitive work being done there. But what is it? That's what the intriguing question is to me. Like if you do like that internal reflection and you really think, why am I putting that in this column and that in this column? What really is the criteria that I'm utilizing? And if it's this one makes me feel good feels, and that's affirming, that's really not good criteria. And nobody else would ever perceive that as evidence because even with you, it's not evidence. It's just seeking confirmation, finding it, and then calling it evidence because you found it. Which, not great epistemological frameworks for discerning reality, but here we are. All right, cool. We have one caller left, and then we will read super chats about how everybody supports you in your journey to be antagonistic to coffee tables and by association me. Are you ready to talk to Christina? We'll have to be quick on this one, fortunately. Hello, Christina. You are on the line. What would you like to talk about today?
Hi there. I mostly just wanted to talk about an ethical dilemma that I face pretty much every day at work. I'm a nurse on a cancer unit, and I'm the only atheist nurse on my unit. And I've had a lot of patients, in their dying moments, ask me if I can pray for them. And I say, first they ask, do you believe in God? And I say, well, no, I don't. And they say, but I say, but I'll pray for you anyway. Like, I will be here for you. I will pray for you. And their response is usually like, no, thanks. And I'm like, okay, well, I can find somebody who is religious who can pray with you. But since that moment, I've kind of adopted the mentality of, you know what, maybe I'll just pretend I'm a theist and pray with them, and it'll have just as much benefit than somebody who's religious who's praying for them, because it's not real, right? Like, I will never believe that it's real, but it's bringing them comfort at their time of need. And I think it's the right thing to do. But then when I come home, I feel like a piece of shit because I'm lying to my patients. And I'm just wondering which way I should really go about my job. Like, these people are dying. They have dying wishes. I try to accommodate them best I can, but I can't pray for them without really meaning it,
So I have a bit of a thought, having spent a couple of years in a cancer ward as well, but as a patient, not as a person working there. I was recently an atheist when I was diagnosed, and I had so much time and saw so many of the same faces, I started to feel comfortable asking these questions. And I was specifically asked them what their policy was regarding affirming patient beliefs in that way. And what they would tell me was, that they were instructed at the cancer ward that I was in, that they basically, their policy was to affirm what the person believed, And therefore, where that manifested itself, the way they told me was that meant deflective, often being deflective when they were approached directly like that, right? So it's if they would ask, do you think this is a miracle? They would ask the person, well, do you think it's a miracle? And then basically, give them every possible affirmation that the answer they gave is a good answer, as opposed to having to lie and say that they thought that it was. And I observed this over and over. There would be, if the family said that this was a miracle or that there was deeper meaning behind it, they would basically just nod their head and pick something out of the scenario that they could use to let them continue that particular belief. Is that something that your ward? Is that part of your policy as well, or maybe does your ward have a policy regarding how to deal with these interactions?
Which makes it confusing because I'm the only one. Everybody else is religious and into praying for these people and believing that miracles happen. I've been asked, have you seen situations like this where it turns out positive? And of course I have to say, well, yes, it does happen. And maybe that's enough of a miracle that they need to hear. I don't know.
I think that's a mistake on the part of your ward, because what if the patient is of a different faith or of a no faith at all? Like them offering to pray is actually would have caused me stress. I think if my nurses were coming in, or doctors, or all the support staff. There's so many, and I'm so thankful. I always got so angry when the families attributed, like, we were all here in chemo together for 6 months and we all had surgeries, and these are like the most amazing surgeries that have ever happened. And they're like, well, thank you, Jesus. And I was so mad for the staff. Always, it's like, do you have any idea how much these people studied and the technology that went into making all this happen?
Thank you, science.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
But, well, I'm sorry that you don't have a policy, because I feel like that is probably being harmful to some non-Christian patients in 100%. General. But
I would imagine so.
I can't claim credit for it. I'm echoing the policy that generally is in the staff of the cancer ward I was in, but that basically you deflect the question and you affirm their answer. Would that give you a cleaner conscience at the end of the day?
I mean, a lot of my patients are religious, so it just makes it challenging for me, because they'll be like, what do you believe? I'm like, let's look into what you believe. What do you believe? And then they'll tell me all this stuff, and they're like, if you're a believer, I'd like you to pray for me. And I can't. And initially I couldn't do it because I'm not a believer, right? I wanted to be honest. But later on, I was like, okay, sure, I'll pray with you, just to make them feel better. And it just doesn't seem right.
I mean, pragmatically, I think about the end of my time as essentially as a pastor at a church when I started stopping believing. I can think back to all those times where all of a sudden I wasn't even comfortable because I maybe didn't believe that I would very much getting, well, you know what? Let's just have a quiet moment. I would often do, or I would have someone else do the speaking instead. I know these are going to be weird things that I'm sure you've tried. Absolutely. Like, doing, let's have a moment of silence where we both pray, or, those kind of things. Yeah. Or you're saying, because a lot of people aren't comfortable praying out loud, right? So at least in my church, it was appropriate to say, I'm not comfortable praying out loud, but let's spend a moment in silence.
And we do that a lot. We do a lot of moments of silence. Yes.
Okay. Well, anyway, those are some of I have much less training in this area than Shannon, but it was a bit of a lived experience for me, and I thought maybe that might help. I don't know, Shannon, did you have anything to add?
Yeah.
No, I think that's all great. I was gonna give similar but less comprehensive advice, which was essentially just to. Sorry, I had to have a drink. My throat got really dry. I guess I'm not used to shutting up for that long. I, like in a situation like that, I would just not volunteer my belief unless it was specifically asked for, and then do what Paul said and likely deflect as best I could. And if somebody asks, would you pray for me? I would say, yeah, absolutely. Like for sure. Absolutely. And, I do my version of it, which is just, to say some internal quiet meditation about my hopes for that person, like, which is the equivalent.
Yeah.
So that was still being honest with them and still,
Yeah, and that is real. Yeah.
yeah, I do internal bit, and that potentially would help me work through some of that, because I'm sure it's a traumatic job in general, like working with people who are grappling with that, which would make it traumatic on you. So maybe that affirmation would be of some assistance in regards to that, while also like assuaging some of the guilt related to feeling like you're being dishonest in that moment, because you wouldn't be, because you would be doing your own version of it.
Yeah.
So I would only really expose myself, I guess, in that situation when pressed, because I wouldn't feel like in that person's like private moments when they're grappling with their health, that's not a moment for me to insert myself and start debating with them about belief systems. That's not what they need in that moment. So I would take a very different road of just focusing on them, and if they want to focus on me, just trying to redirect the focus back to them. Which sounds like Paul gave all kinds of great advice that was very, very similar.
Yeah.
And
thank you,
on behalf
guys.
of all your patients, on behalf of all of your patients who thanked a deity instead of you, I'm thanking you for your work and your skill and all the years of training that you did, and all the times you had to poke someone in a needle to practice how all that went. I just thank you for all that and for sticking it through, and for not getting not getting all the sleep. I know you have weird night shifts. You had all those things. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, you guys. You guys are so sweet.
Well, Paul
Thank
is.
you.
I'm also here. Thanks, Christina. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye. We did it.
We did it.
We hosted a show. Look at us.
Well, we did the calls.
They said it couldn't be done. We did. Yes, that's true. We still have to read all of the super chats. No. Let's to make this one count, because who knows when I'll be back. My schedule is such a disaster. Do you want to alternate?
Yes, we should alternate. You can.
What do you want to do?
You can start.
Me? Okay. $5 from Monkey at a time. I picked a horrible time to take my glasses off. These new glasses, though, are like tight. So like they're pressing right here and giving me a headache. You know what that feels like? Like if you get glasses that just fit wrong?
I do. Yep.
Like they're pressing right behind my ears and it's giving me a headache. Like they're too, I think I need to get them adjusted. But anyway, all right. Nobody cares. Why am I so neurodivergent? I swear to God, when anybody looked here about my glasses. $5 from Monkey at a Typewriter. Paul is a prophet. He accurately predicted the impending expiration of a 100-year-old man. Truly, we must follow him into the coffee table-less future. I mean, who can argue with
conclusion. That's right.
The preponderance of evidence is pointing in the direction that that Paul needs to start a religion of sorts about, I guess, when people are going to die. It sounds like a horrible religion. But that's kind of what all of them are about, I guess.
It is. Among my other among the other things I predicted, just so everyone's aware, so that there's no one's caught by surprise. I also predicted hostilities in the Middle East and extreme weather events and market disruptions due to artificial intelligence. So, everyone, keep your eyes out for those bold predictions.
How will we all deal with your new regime? Oh,
That's
I
right.
think there was one up, but I think it's gone.
Oh, I missed. I need to. Oh no! Can we go back?
Yeah.
I took too long.
We were too busy yammering.
All
there
right.
it is.
$10 from Adam. Adam D. Shannon, Paul's mug beating yours out makes perfect sense. the kind of people who don't have coffee tables would be more prone to breaking or losing coffee mugs. Hashtag team coffee table.
Yeah. What I hope is that people are all buying them to take pictures of them on their coffee tables and just spam all your social media accounts with them. Tag him everywhere once they arrive. Put them on coffee tables.
And you can hold
Judas.
and
Because I know
pictures
you have
with
a
my
coffee
mug.
table.
Just
I
doing
know
nothing,
you do.
just holding it in the air. This
Putting
is
it
you.
on the floor. Garbage. Absolute garbage. All right. £5. That's pounds, right? Not good at the currency.
Sure.
I think that's pounds. Sure. From
pounds.
Mystic Minds Analysis Tavern. That's a fun name. People cut and paste religions to fit around existing beliefs anyway. The religious text matters less than what parts of them a person implements.
I'm not sure I fully
On an
agree.
individual level, maybe until the person shifts their mind or reads a different component of it and sees it a different way. Like as organizational religion stands and institutional religion stands, I wouldn't say
Actually, I
that's
guess
the
no.
case.
If it's really just to say, if it's a matter of like just comparative, so
yeah,
what matters more, the words in the text or their underlying beliefs? Yeah, their underlying beliefs matter more than the words in the text. The problem is that people can be swayed when they use bad epistemology. So
yeah, because people cafeteria the fuck out of religion for sure.
oh sure,
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
I think Australia $10 from Tammy B. God reminds me of a pseudoplasmodium slug. It comes together only to slip away altogether. Pseudoplasmodium
slug. I don't know. I don't know that word.
Right.
But that reminds me of
an
anime my son used to watch called That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I had a little slimy guy. He wasn't a slug though.
We're probably still subscribed to that
from
anime service for no good reason.
He doesn't really watch it anymore though. I think he's over the anime service. I think your kids watch
That's what I'm
it,
saying. We're probably still subscribed and not watching. That's all I was saying.
Oh, I think your kids do. $4.99 from Abroxon. Abroxon? I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing this. Guys, a building has a builder. A painting has a painter. Coffee must have a coffee table. My logic is sound. Hashtag Team Shannon, don't at me. That's right. Don't at them.
No. A coffee must have a coffeeer. That's if you follow the pattern. Not a. You would have to say a building has a build. Guys, a building have a build table. A painting has a paint table. Coffee must have a coffee table. Then you'd have something.
Oh my God.
I don't know,
Broxton. This is still my life. Honest to God. Is it your turn?
$10.
Yeah, it's your turn.
From Zachary Henrik. So, silly question, but what exactly supposedly changed when Jesus died? Like, did people not go to heaven before that or something? A guy was hollering on the street corner about it, and I didn't ask. LOL. So, I don't know. Do I put on a Christian hat answer, or what do you...
I want to hear your Christian hat answer.
So everyone who existed before Jesus still needed Jesus' sacrifice to pay their sins, but God isn't. So depending on your denomination, depending on all kinds of things, you'll have different answers to this, but absolutely, like Moses still needed Jesus to come and die. Moses couldn't have got into heaven without Jesus eventually coming, and that his sacrifice was both retroactive and proactive into the future, and that only God knows what the criteria. We know what the criteria is according to the New Testament for people moving forward past Jesus. What we don't know, God didn't give a great criteria about who will be saved in the pre-Jesus era. So, but if you read Hebrews, the book of Hebrews, which no one knows who wrote it, and it's in the New Testament anyway, it's very clear that Jesus's sacrifice is retroactive to some of those people whom God will arbitrarily decide.
What did God do with them? Like, were they just in purgatory that entire time, just like chilling?
So,
Or did it happen
depending on
instantaneously because time means nothing to God and God just put them right in heaven even though they didn't hear the message?
yeah,
Because
there's
God
great
doesn't
debate
exist
over
in
that.
linear time.
In my denomination, we certainly held to the verses that would affirm that we, when we die, that we're instantly teleported basically to Judgment Day.
Okay.
And that we're all arriving at Judgment Day. We appear to be arriving at the same time. Right?
Okay. So like Doctor Who,
like,
that shit. Like just everybody, TARDIS is for everybody. You just...
Yeah, they were all essentially there now.
Die.
Right.
Okay.
The Catholic doctrine is of course quite different, that there's a notion that we're in some kind of limbo state and actually aware of it. The Bible does also contradict this point because it does seem to infer that people who have died before us are cheering us on to be good Christians, which implies that they're watching us, which implies they're also watching bad things that we're doing.
Poor
so
fucking
that's
Lazarus
a weird
too.
thing.
Jesus robbed him. He could have been right at the end. Could have been right at the end, but he resurrected that poor bastard.
Instead he dragged him back with a decrepit body. Yeah.
Was he just like at the gates? Like, oh, this is the best. And then he was back. What about Sheol? Like, what do they do about the Jewish conception of the afterlife? Do they just yada yada over it? Like, what do they do about that?
What about
because they have a concept?
What about the? Yeah, but they're it's not as much an afterlife. Yeah, but they believed in a general resurrection where we would all be resurrected, and again that we were like that we're not conscious in the between time until the general resurrection. And the general resurrection was an earthly kingdom, right? It was like, oh well, God's coming, but God's gonna restore Earth. Like there's no heaven. God's going to restore Earth to being great.
So we're just like in the transporter as a pattern waiting to like rematerialize. Is that
my
what that
Jewish
means?
friends? I will pardon me for any places where I've gotten that incorrect, but that is my understanding.
Okay, fair enough. Okay.
Yep.
£5 from Lenny. Random factoid: The Simpsons TV show has a better rate of predictions coming true than the Bible. Paul, you've leaned into that before. In the past,
I have. Yeah, they predicted Fox buying Disney, Trump being president. There's innumerable things. Disney buying Fox, pardon me, the other way around. Disney buying Fox.
You can't make Marvel worse than it already is.
No. It's
please don't let Fox buy. Thank God.
Yeah, no. The number of things they get right. If it's a fun rabbit hole to traverse if you so choose. $5 for Monkey the Typewriter. And so Monkey, thank you every night for all the super chats. Love it. Random fact: the original meaning of the word factoid was an oft-repeated false belief. Interesting. Which means the modern meaning fits the original meaning. Okay. So factoid is a oft-repeated false belief. Cool.
All right. $20. Woo! Thank you. From Van Halen, backing isolated and live tracks. Do you consider Christianity a cult? I think it is. They have a divine human leader whom they believe is still alive, threats of hell, and it has coercive methods to get people to behave a certain way, etc. Ubiquitously, no. Are there sects that would be a cult? Yes. But not like unilaterally.
And this is ultimately the same, like, well, is atheism a religion? Well, how do you define religion? Like this one, you kind of need to, how do you define cult, right? So if you say all that you need to be a cult is having having some coercive methods and threats of hell, okay, sure, but that's maybe not like full bite model what would say. So these are, I always need to know what the definition is, I guess, at this point. £5 from FM DJ. A couple musical themed ones, these last ones.
Aww.
First super chat. This is long overdue. Welcome, FM DJ. You do great work for all, and because of some dark reasons, you're seriously contributing to keeping me sane. Thank you. Well,
I'm glad.
sanity is good. So, yeah.
We spend the other, 20 some hours of the day driving each other crazy. So at least we're helping society a little bit.
On the peripheral,
channeling that energy for a couple of hours. $20 from KR Waits. Asking Shannon about resources for neurocognition of religion, MS in field before lost faith. Now want to know all brain stuff behind it. Partner has MS. We love Shan's streams for research. Oh, thanks. He also loves Paul and concept of being a Canadian. Haha. Being Canadian is pretty cool. Neurocognition of religion. It's a good question. Let me see what books I have on file right now. Give me 2 seconds to look up my library. I started a Goodreads. Somebody told me I should start a Goodreads, so I did.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah.
But I don't know how to use it. But people constantly ask, like, what books, right? Or so I think that having a Goodreads link, like Forrest should definitely have one. You should for sure have one. We would have so many different types of books on it too. Like if people are looking for like consciousness and psychology and like ADHD stuff and therapeutic stuff, I'd probably be a good person. If they're looking for like historical stuff about the Bible and textual criticism, you'd be a good person. Forrest on biology, Erika like primatology and biology in general, like Aron, probably, God, I'd love to just see what Aron's reading, just period in general. Like Matt, like debate tactics, probably, and a lot of philosophy stuff. We should totally have like a line Goodreads. I think people ask so often about it.
It's a good idea.
I don't know who I need to talk to for that, and I'm also bad at talking to people. What was the question that was asked of me?
looking for resources on neurocognition of religion.
My gosh, I'm the worst. Okay, so Robert M. Sapolsky writes lots of really great books that are super cool. I've recently read Determined. It's pretty good. It interacts with religion and talks about religion because it's talking about determinism. Anyway, I'm reading a book right now that's decent. It's a relatively short book, and it's called When Religion Hurts You, and it's by Laura E. Anderson, PhD. So those are the two most recent ones that interacted with that I've been really reading. Right now, I'm reading Bertrand Russell stuff because it dawned on me that I had never read Bertrand Russell. So I'm currently reading What I Believe by Bertrand Russell. For anybody who is going to ask me what I'm currently reading, that is what I'm currently reading. But those are the two books I've read most recently that come to the forefront of my mind. And thank you for the super chat.
Oh, all right.
Hopefully you get to become Canadian someday.
And I've spent the day reading the works of Peter F. Kraft, who writes on neuroarchaeology.
Neuroarchaeology? Why aren't we talking about that book? What the fuck is neuroarchaeology?
Well, we will after this is done. Yeah.
Yeah. What is that? Why are you... Okay, I'm not going to get into it. Okay, so... We'll talk later. What the fuck?
Yep.
I think I have a general idea, but we'll talk later. Okay, cool. Your turn. Read the thing.
10 pounds from Ektril Poe. Today I found my complete namesake on the interwebs. Same name, same surname. Is this coincident a spiritual experience? I should have asked that.
If only I knew the criteria. I could tell you.
I literally...
But I don't. It's hidden from me.
I know two other men who have my same first name, last name, and I'm aware of another. There's a mayor of a town who has my name, Birmingham, Ontario, Brigham, Ontario. Anyway, there's a mayor Paul Enns of a town out there that I'm sure he just got all kinds of like, what's this atheist doing with your name? And
you know what my favorite
was?
The Paulogia on Twitter. That was like some weather forecaster from Brazil or Portugal or something. Yeah. He was tagged so much because people didn't realize your Twitter handle had a 0 at the end, and his was just flat Paulogia, that he had to block you and like everyone who followed you because you were ruining his life, and he was a public figure. I really enjoyed that. Does that mean, did God
Yeah.
orchestrate that? Do you figure to ruin that
Poor,
guy's life?
Paulo- I think his name was Paulo Giovanni, but he just thinking, well, okay, Paulo Giovanni, I can Paulogia, will be fine. But nope, wrecked his life.
Oh, poor guy. Didn't see you coming. Sideswiped his whole fucking life. $5 from RC to Shane. Hey, Shannon, get out that wine bottle and start pounding. It's almost ham and eggs time. Ham and eggs time has passed. And I drank 2 shooters, I don't know how much rum, a bottle of wine, and 3 mimosas. So, I'm still not okay for a multitude of reasons. But if anybody watches Happy New Year, I don't remember a lot of what I said, so you're welcome and/or I'm sorry.
It'll be new to. It's always
I
new
hope
to
you
Shannon
enjoyed
as well.
it, or I'm sorry.
Happens. Yep.
What? What'd you say? I didn't hear you. I was talking.
It's always new to you as well. You get to have the fun of the day and then the fun of the episode, and they're whole
my
separate.
God. I think I black out for a multitude of reasons. Okay, $5 from. Oh, it's you.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I think it's me. $5 from Melissa Adair. Religion actively harms children, women, and LGBTQIA. I don't disagree.
Yeah, hundo. That's basically most of the reason I do what I do. Not because I enjoy being condescended to by men every time I go on. I'll tell you what. That's not why. $5 from Monkey at a Typewriter. Mark Twain was born and died with the same comet in view. Jefferson and Adams died the same night. Get enough incidences, some will be coincidences. I mean, like, exactly right. And even so, even if one of them was like me, like, then what? To Paul's point, I think you were focusing on that. Yeah, that's nice. Like, then what? Then what? Then what do you do with that? Nothing is truly the answer.
Yeah. £5 from Lenny. What's your favorite irregular verb?
I don't know. I got to Google irregular verb now to make sure I don't fuck this up. Irregular verb.
Oh, okay. So it is the one that drives me the most crazy is see, because where I live, people think that the word is seen. They will actively use the word seen.
Not. Yeah, I seen a car going down the street. Yeah.
Yeah, and that drives me crazy.
We know.
So
we
that's
just
my
don't
least
give a
favorite
shit.
one.
We know. We just don't give a shit. Does that really bug you? Because I'm gonna start doing it all the time.
It does bug me, yeah.
I seen a car the other day. She was rocking down the street, bud. Too bad. One of us. That's funny. I saw TikTok. What was it, like 2 days ago? I think it was Saturday, and it was out west versus like the Maritimes. I think it's I sent it to you, and it was like, what if I don't want to live your lifestyle? And if the person was from out west, and then they turn to the right, and it's an East Coaster, because like labeled East Coaster, with like a toucan, smoking a cigarette, pouring Baileys in their coffee. Like mascara dripping down their face,
mascara all over their face. Yeah,
looking just rode and turned, going, "Don't be silly. Everyone wants this." Oh, I loved it. And I think there was a Schitt's Creek like dub, but anyway, $9.99 from Mario Bartolome Seaman, donating what I can. Thank you, Mario. That's super super cool of you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you.
Thank you, Mario. Have we arrived at the end? Oh,
I don't know. I guess not.
$4.99 from XJWJC. Hope everyone has a great New Year. Well, I hope everyone watching this show has a great New Year. There's a few people in my head that if they only had a good New Year, that would be fine with me. but
there's some people I actively want to have a horrible New Year.
Yeah, well, But
Just a
everyone
few.
here should have a great one. I agree. If you have a choice, have a great one.
Indeed. Yes, please. Concur. Oh, I got an easy one. $10 from Bosco. Thank you, Bosco.
$4.99 from Donkey Butt. Any good bookies for dispelling the soulsies?
Oh, I can tell you if you want to read the shittiest book ever written on the soul, let me tell you. What's the name of I think his book is just called The Soul. The first book I read about the soul was J.P. Moreland's book, and it pissed me off so much because it was so stupid on so many levels.
Is this is that to you what the answers books from Ken Ham were? Like it's the same thing?
Well, no, I already didn't believe in souls, going to
right, but you're reading it and you're like, I don't know what the right answer is, but it's obviously not this.
Like I was so mad I didn't know where to start. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when you get finished something and you're like, I literally don't even know where to start. The answer for Dispelling the Soul, but The Hidden Spring is my favorite book on consciousness by Mark Soms. I actually interviewed Mark Soms on my channel. It's one of the least viewed interviews that I have on my channel, and it's tragic to me because it is by far the best and most enlightening interview. And it was about his book, The Hidden Spring. Once I was finished reading it, I reached out to him and was like, can I please talk to you? I didn't think I stood a chance, but he agreed to talk to me. And like barely anybody watched it. It was like the biggest coup that I had was talking to Mark Soms, and barely anybody watched it. But The Hidden Spring is by far, I think, the best book I've read about it. What's J.P. Moreland's stupid book called? I think I deleted it so that it would no longer grace my Audible account. What books did you write, J.P. Moreland? You wrote so many shitty books. Which one is it? Oh, it's just called The Soul: How We Know It's Real and Why It Matters. It is garbage. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's basically the Bible tells me so, cover to cover. Well, Jesus said it was. Are you trying to tell me you hate Jesus? Like, that's basically what the book is, with a bit of shitty philosophy and no understanding whatsoever of neuroscience. He talks about C fibers, and this is not the time and place, but when he was talking about C fibers, I got so mad because it actually goes against his point that he was trying to make about C fibers and proprioceptors and nociceptors that I just couldn't believe that he was stupid enough to do it with his whole chest. But anyway, go read that if you want to laugh. It's fucking hysterical. My turn? Sorry. My meds are wearing off, so a little all over the place. $5 from Skeptics and Scoundrels. Christina, this is a terrible idea, but a big Baphomet tattoo on your arm will make those prayer requests go away. I mean, potentially, but also maybe just don't get tattoos for the sole purpose of antagonizing dying people. I can't endorse that personally.
$5 from Stina. You guys are so sweet. Thank you for helping me with the dilemma I face with dying patients every day.
Oh.
Also, though, coffee tables are just as important.
See, I have been led to believe that people are on my side.
I feel like cancer patients are more important than coffee tables. I think they're at least a little bit ahead.
Tragic. $10 from Jeff Cochran. What are you two reading these days? See, we need a Goodreads. We need a line Goodreads so desperately. I don't know how Goodreads works though. I'm just making decisions for people without looking into what it even entails. P.S. We the people require a book club. Oh, that's fun. I wonder if you could do that on Goodreads and talk back and forth, because that would be super cool. How else will we find the 5 non-believers that actually want to read and discuss Habermas Volume 3?
Yeah.
There's only one that lives in this house, I'll tell you that, and not here. Not here. Those bricks will never see my eye. My eyes will never see those. No, thank you. I could build a coffee table out of those. They're freaking big enough.
So I'm currently reading one of the best books on the Old Testament I've ever read. It's from David Carr, and it's called The Formation of Genesis 1 to 11, Biblical and Other Precursors. So what it goes through is each chapter of Genesis 1 through 11, and it identifies what the likely influences on those texts were, both from within the Hebrew Bible and from without. And it is, and I honestly don't know if he's a Christian or not. No idea. Can't tell, which is great. But it's like, it's literally like it picks apart, like, is the Enuma Elish and like all the things. Like, it's, I am probably going to adapt this book into a video series because it is that good. And thank you, Kip Davis, for recommending it.
Cool. Yeah, Kip would be great for that type of recommendation. Yep. Super good. Would Kip ever host a line, I wonder? I bet you he would. It'd be fun. $10 from Sapphic Bibliophile. Oh, I like that name. Shannon, do you know if there are brain structure differences that account for some people seeming to have higher levels of empathy than others outside of the environment they're raised in? Not off the top of my head. But I wouldn't want to speak to something just based on a potentially valuable memory. I think that I know I've read studies on like damage causing lacks of empathy. I think it has to do with damage to like the lower part of your frontal lobe, but I can't remember the exact name of the location right now. That if something happens to that and it gets damaged, that there's like a lowering of empathetic like behaviors and like responses to empathetic cues. I can't remember what the name of the area is. The lower part of the frontal cortex, like on the underside. But that's as much as I can remember. If you look up Phineas Gage, he had it perforated, which is part of the reason that he had like obliterated. It wasn't even perforated; it blew right out the top of his head, and had some pretty dramatic changes. And like from there, they like built case studies out saying that area has a lot to do with like empathy and sympathy and like being able to like see yourself in other people's perspectives, because they do think it might be damaged some in psychopaths as well. Like that area seems to be damaged. But I can't remember what it's called right now. Like it's like look up a diagram of the brain. It's in the lower part of the prefrontal cortex. Go to the next one. I'll look it up. Go to the next one, Paul. Read the next one, and I'll look it up.
$5 from Aaron C. I have to ask, if no coffee table, WGAT, I'm too old, I don't know. Does the toddler run around like a maniac, or is that just mine? Oh yeah.
She didn't run around like a maniac.
I have observed kids orbiting coffee tables before. I think that's the phenomenon you're talking about. I didn't have coffee tables for when my kids were toddlers. So let me assure you, they find something to orbit. It doesn't have to be a coffee table. Could be it becomes then the dining room table or a chair or something. They will definitely. Kids want to orbit things.
Ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Fucking knew it would come to me. Ventromedial prefrontal cortex. Annoyed me that I have to look that up. I hadn't read up on it in a while. Ventromedial prefrontal cortex. See? Found it. $5 from Monkey a Typewriter. Building needs builder, coffee needs coffee table, but a pool doesn't need a pool table, does it? Checkmate, atheist. Also, I'm really happy to see Shannon. I'm really happy to be back. I had some travel and a lot of parenting, a lot of coaching and playing soccer and volunteering, a boatload of work, and then a bunch of health issues. So I'm sorry I've been absent, but my schedule has not been conducive to being here, unfortunately. But I appreciate being back. Thank you.
$5 from SJL. So God put Moses' sins on layaway until Jesus died. That's exactly right. Everyone just got to, here's your sins. Yeah. That's right. Hopefully, and like they're tapping their watch. Like, when's that Jesus coming to pay? You said someone's coming to pay your bill on this. I don't know. Yeah.
How is that fair,
funny
though,
image.
if there was a new covenant? Like, I don't get it. Like, what about the people that were adhering to the old covenant? Like, even though they weren't adhering to the new covenant, did they just get in? Because they didn't have a chance to know what the new covenant was. So
No, so the Hebrews is quite clear that they will be judged on what level of knowledge they did have.
Oh, okay.
So they will be
Cool.
judged only to the proportion of which they had knowledge. So
But that just means that Jesus didn't have to die for anybody's sins, because they just could have sent everybody that had that degree of knowledge there anyway. Like, everybody in history up to that point was going to be saved anyway, which means you could save people without him dying, which means that was unnecessary.
So they will also say that modernly, and like, let's say it probably doesn't exist at this point, but hypothetically there's civilizations that are untouched by Western culture and don't know Jesus. One could argue that by sending missionaries in, so what William Craig and other people say, well, God will, same as the Old Testament, he'll judge them based on what they know. And so the argument is, like, if you send people in there, you're actually screwing them. You're fucking those guys, because you're sending them in with all this knowledge now that they're going to be judged against when they were happily living without the knowledge. You're better without it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It seems like a lot of unnecessary steps. Anywho. Yeah. Oh, my turn. $5 from Balthazar 228. I thought Judgment Day was in 1991. It was a massive sequel to The Terminator. That is true. That is true. That is when Judgment Day came out. There's also been many Judgment Days predicted.
That's when all the Old Testament people actually got sent to 1991, and they were issued right into James Cameron's movies. That's there you go.
Oh, it's Euro.
This is but there's a different there's a different symbol for pound. Pound is the one that looks kind of like an L, right? Like it's kind of
correct. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and the euro, and this one's a euro. See, we're too North American centric over here.
We're not well traveled enough, I guess. $5 from James Richards. A building sits upon a foundation, and a painting sits upon a canvas. So a coffee must sit upon a table. There, I fixed it.
I will say that's a better version. It's definitely a better version.
Tighten that up a little bit.
Yeah. 666 from Matt Lambert. Love you both. Love you both. Here's to a happy new year. Yeah, that's right. We're starting off with satanic symbols. Very good. Well done, Matt.
As we do. And $5 from Josh White. I think it's our last one. Anyway, I can convince you guys to cover the upcoming federal election whenever that happens next year. Oh, anyway, that I can convince you guys. Happy New Year's, and coffee tables are cool. Are you Canadian? Because I often think that Paul and I should have another channel. I said this the other day, where we just talk about movies and I didn't say politics, but movies, because we spend a lot of time dissecting movies when we actually enjoy doing it. Not that I would have time for that either.
Other forms of entertainment too, yeah. But maybe we can convince Josh. You need to convince Jimmy that we should have a hot on the line
Canadian
live,
federal election special.
Canadian federal election special to see.
They're about to prorogue the fucking parliament, though. Did you see that?
Yeah.
They're about to prorogue the parliament. And if they prorogue the parliament, they're going to oust him. They're going to elect a new leader, which is probably the smartest thing that the Liberal Party can do.
I think
because they're not winning with Trudeau. And now that the NDP is out, now that the NDP is not in an alliance with them, and they're going to call a no confidence vote, they're going to oust him, and it'll be a snap election instead, and they won't have time to get a new leader. So they're going to prorogue the friggin' parliament for 12 weeks,
just electing
and they're going to get a new leader.
Whoever we elect will be the person who brokers, our surrender to the America. That's what will happen.
Even Pierre Poilievre told him to go shove it up his ass. And that guy's a shisty little fuck. He doesn't even have security clearance. Like, I don't know why more people aren't looking at Pierre Poilievre like, hey, you're the leader. You're a leader of the second largest party in the country. Why don't you have security clearance? Elizabeth May has security clearance. I think she's the only one who holds a seat in her party. Anyway, dear Americans, we also have politics. Most of you probably have no idea what I just said about anything. Yeah, we should convince Jimmy to have a Canadian election special. Who else could come on? Who else is Canadian? Is Aron? Aron's Canadian, isn't he?
Oh no!
Why do I think he's Canadian?
Kip definitely has ideas as well. Oh, you mean from our regular line roster?
From the line people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it just no? It's not
weird
just
thing
me.
I said.
Really?
Weird thing I said on a live stream the other day was that I have voted in my life for 5 different parties.
Are you talking provincially or federally? Are you all together?
All together, I voted. Talk to an American and imagine in your life having voted for 5 different political parties. That's
so they don't have different parties on the state level at all. It's just the Democrats, Republicans. So there's only a binary choice even at the state level.
That's correct. Yep.
What about municipal? Well, municipal doesn't have parties.
Sometimes in municipal, so they often declare, and so you'll have often 3 Democrats versus a Republican for
that's weird.
A municipal level thing. But they often do declare that so you can feel good about your color winning.
That's kind of fascinating. Okay, cool. Well,
anyway,
thus brings us to the end of our journey today. Thank you very much to the producer, Morgan. Thank you to Steph, as always, who I just adore her, to all the pieces in the world for call screening today and for everything she does everywhere. I just love Steph, all the pieces. Fellow East Coaster, woohoo! It's on the wrong side of the border, but I'll allow it. Thank you to all of you for watching. I'm so glad that I was back. I'll try to come back more. I can't make any promises because I have to parent first, unfortunately. Not unfortunately. I'm very happy to parent first. That came out horribly. I'm not wordsing good this evening. I think I'm tired and not medicated anymore. Yeah. Thank you very much. And as always, everyone, help elevate the discourse. Bye. Now all of a sudden I have nothing to say, and I usually talk through these to see when I'm gonna get cut off, but I'm out of words.